but I'll share that on.
Well, I'm looking forward to this talk. And as you're aware already, I think, we're into some common endeavors. So we love having people like yourself that we can learn from. And I wish you were here on our property right now because we're doing some work.
Awesome. Maybe it will all come together. If it flows well with us, I'm game.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think we're live, guys. Everyone's, I just asked the chat if we sound okay. I'm very excited about this show. I'm going to go ahead and hit record and fire this bad boy up. Here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with the impressively noble Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom still reigns supreme. Spring is teasing us right now. We had our first bit of sun in about 2 weeks yesterday, and it's just marvelous being here with all the lushness, the flowing waterfalls, the high river right now, the snow melt, and everything, but it's starting to feel a little bit like spring, Bear. Time to get planting, my man.
Yes, I even saw the abominable snowman out dancing yesterday.
He was shaking a foot, huh? Shaking off that snow, even though we are being threatened with another storm. So it seems like the grand solar minimum is definitely kicking in, as we stated 3 years ago with our guest David Devine when he first came on. He was saying 2023, 2024, we were going to start to see it. So it's starting to show its way here. And we have a guest today who is living in the tundra of Russia, who is building for that exact type of climate. So I think it's going to be a perfect talk as we look towards building on the land more resilient functioning, more resilient ways so that we can survive the longer winters that seem to be coming. I will actually be skiing again, night skiing tonight and tomorrow night as well. So I'm loving it. It's a good time. Bear, anything for you to update from the farm before we bring our guest in?
Just a lot of changes here as usual. We had to slow down a little bit because we were packed in with snow and couldn't do any work, but we're building a new fenced-in area around our main business center, and that's going to be another whole growing area with more food forest and herbal trellises for the things we grow. So now that the sun's out, we're going to get back at it. That's all I've got. That's kind of my world, Yosho. We just, we're pretty much hands in the dirt here every day. So boring to a lot of people, but we enjoy it immensely. So couldn't be happier. So Michael, take it away. We want to get into this.
Okay, will do. And one last thing, Bear, we did launch public tickets for Music in Sky, which Bear is of course, the keynote speaker. So if you guys are interested in coming out and joining us this summer at our Freedom, Love, and Truth Festival, you can go to musicandsky.com. Very excited about some big announcements coming your way with that too. Love you guys. We love our Music in Sky community. And last, if you are new to Alfa Vedic, you can find out everything about us at alfavedic.com, ALFAVEDIC.com. On this Alfacast, we welcome natural builder, designer, and inventor Alësha Lynov to the Alfa Vedic family and its efforts to reclaim our world through conscious building, 7-generational agriculture, and medicine without violence. Since 2007, Alosha has been developing living habitats that merge nature in a curvilinear interactive play space as a cohesive Bio Shelter Organism. His innovative dwellings are constructed to both protect and nourish while being able to withstand weather extremes without conventional heating and minimal inputs, whilst upcycling and reusing all of its waste outputs. quote, transform our children's education experience in a warm womb-like atmosphere so they can take the reins of the future world that most of us are going to reincarnate back into. Hear, hear. Couldn't agree more. Alosha's fully autonomous homes are a synthesis of some of the greatest minds in the fields of eco-construction, as well as his own journey through homesteading that render his creations impervious to the harsh climate conditions of his home country of Mother Russia. Please join us in this very special episode as Alosha shares his lifelong mission and dream to create an experimental lab training students in functional hands-on building techniques creatively infused with the laws of physics, biology, biogeometry, biomimicry, and soil regeneration to develop self-regenerative living habitats for the future of humankind. I can't think of a more important topic, to be honest, as we all move onto the land and out of the cities. Bear Lando, take it away.
Yeah, it's a wonderful time to have you on with our bank failures here in the States, and people are realizing, wow, we got to fix this thing ourselves. So Alosha, thank you so much for being with us. I'm really looking forward to this. You know, you're preaching to the choir right now because, you know, we're all about what your endeavors, you know, bring to the table. And we also entertain a number of folks that have different, you know, experiential and knowledge bases, you know, along the same subject matter. Just a couple comments that maybe aren't here nor there, but I've always had, you're coming to us from Russia today. And, you know, there's a lot of politics going on in the world, as you know, and Mike and I really don't get into the political discussions. Basically, politics, or I don't know, what do you call, Mike? It's theater for numbnuts. I don't know how else to describe it. So, you know, we refrain from it. However, we do understand that there is a global awakening, not a reset, but an awakening happening. And since I was a small child, I always had this affinity for Russia. You know, I used to read books about it. And one I read in grammar school, The Blockade Runner, was all about the Civil War when Russia came to our rescue and saved America. And then later on in life, I also really jumped into a lot of work by Edgar Cayce, who predicted that at this time right now, Russia would basically save the world. And I think it's interesting that as a continent, we'll just say, trying to withstand the onslaught of the global parasite that's trying to incorporate us all into a global banking system and control everybody. And the countries that have been attacked are the ones that do not go along with that program. So a lot going on there. And, you know, with my affinities, for what it's worth, and I don't know how to explain them, you know, you mentioned past lives, reincarnation. So what the heck? Is that you, Mike? But
No,
anyway,
I'm
I have a lot of memories also. Who knows, you know, what it's from Russia. And, you know, just always had this connection. It was you. Usually it's me with the background noise. So, so anyway, so good to have you here. And it's also, I think, no coincidence that we are connecting with other folks from your continent, most notably the Anastasia group and others as well. So welcome. So good to have you here. And we want to pick your brain about everything you're doing there to create sustainable dwellings. And the thing I really like about where you know, go with this is that they're spaces, they're places that nurture, and homes really are supposed to be that. We live in nature. We also live in dwellings that are all natural materials. And it's just such a different feel compared to walking into the typical house in the burbs with all the electronics and so forth. So, so Alosha, let's take it away here and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself to begin with and how you got into all this. And then we can segue as quick as possible into your technologies and your creations. So thanks again for being with us.
Thanks, Bear. So yeah, wow, there's a lot to comment on what you just said. Firstly, I also never got into politics myself, and I was just like, nah. But we were kind of forced into the whole political thing. Is like we had an issue on our border where we're basically, if to just cut it short, and I know this conversation is not about it, but at World War II, the Nazis were all compacted, grouped, and moved to Canada. There was a church in the UPA, which terrible things. I mean, I'll get goosebumps if I speak about what Bandera and UPA church did to people. Just Google it, and it's over 21 footage. Yeah, basically, in the 1990s, when USA collapsed, Russia and sort of perished it, basically, USSR, all those Nazis were moved back to Ukraine, and they started basically training our own brothers, our own Slavic brothers that will always live together as us, the Russians, the Belarusians, and the Ukrainians were all like, you know, it was one people. Tajikistan, Uzbekistan were one people, and they trained these people to really hate us. NATO printed books that they were giving to children from schooling days, loads of millions of books that showing Russians as zombies. And it's like, hey, we didn't even know any of this. We're like, gosh, you know. So yeah, 30 years later, we have 30 million people on our border that want to slaughter us. They're literally making cakes with Russian babies that they're cutting in the pubs. Yeah, bad stuff. Anyway, so now that's what we have at our border. Now NATO is sponsoring them, I think, over $40 billion. Or close to $100 billion of ammunition already, and it tripled now in the last 2 months. So they're ramping up the whole story. So it's not looking good, but we're standing up to it. A lot of people who are still not believing that what's going on and thinking that it's an offense or Russia attacking. Bear, what would you do if somebody came around your house and put some guns here, put some soldiers there, put some more soldiers there, and all around your house, all around your farm, they continued putting that for 30, 40, 30 years. And eventually you have so many ammunitions and armies around your home. Eventually, you know, if you don't come out now and kick some ass, in a few years' time, there'll be way too much that you can't kick ass. So you get out and you start protecting your home and then say, Bear, you're the offensive guy. You started this. That's basically what happened, just to cut that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so
here on our land, I'm locked and loaded at all times here. So trespassers won't do very well. And if it makes you feel any better, you know, we have a zombie in the White House right now. And a lot of Americans, if you don't listen to the state-sponsored propaganda, are not believing everything they're told. And we are absolutely against funding a war. We do not want a war. Russians, as well as everybody else in the world, is our brother. And of course, one of the reasons is Ukraine was used as a laundromat for the criminals that are unfortunately running our country right now. So they need to cover their tracks and find a scapegoat. So, but anyway, yeah, I could really get into it and have some strong feelings about this, but let's get into the subject of the day today.
Yeah.
But thank you for your comments. It's just nice to get from the horse's mouth what you feel over there.
But you're right. We are one of the last sovereign countries, and they just want us squashed. And it's really nice here. It's really nice. I'm like, the trains are beautiful. Everything working like clockwork. I traveled in a train, replying to Mike's comment. I went snowboarding for the first time in my life, and I took a few days off. It was so nice. I'm 41, and I'm learning a new thing with my body, and I got to twist and turn. And I traveled back on a double story.
We lost your audio, Alosha. Is that just me, Bear, or is that you too?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you're back. You were saying you were riding on a double-story something.
A double-story train. Double-story train.
Amazing. You know, in here in the States, we have this like sensibility that in Russia, everyone's wearing fur hats, drinking vodka, jumping in ice freezing lakes, and fighting fighting bears. And like
that's
old
what
steam.
we do here.
Well, but and old steam trains and broken down cars, and that's the sort of narrative that we get here. But yeah, please enlighten us a little bit. So you guys actually have ski resorts and facilities that work.
You know what? I think it's a very advanced country, just like Libya was very, very advanced, and everything you hear is the opposite. Literally 180-degree opposite of what is the truth. And that's why I find it very difficult to pick through the truth of what's actually. So it's great that you guys are searching and that you're not believing all the narratives. But yes, the country is extremely advanced. Everything is working like clockwork. The skiing stuff, all the skiing stuff for children is free. All the schools are free. All the hospitals are free. And the insurance for cars is $50 a year.
It's amazing when you get it's amazing when you get the central bankers off your back, how everything kind of opens up.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Speaking of central bankers, the folks that are behind that were, of course, the ones that trained Trotsky and Lenin in New York City and then shipped them over to Russia in 1917. To instigate the Bolshevik revolution and also slaughter the royal family, the Tsar. And that same force behind that and the central banks that run this country as well are now controlling politics here in America and also worldwide. So we've still got these same parasites, but what you are going to share with us today is solution. And also just the fact that here we are speaking to you across many miles with similar goals, people connecting and understanding that while we have more in common with each other than not, and these politicians and bankers have really nothing to do with us. The earth is our only bank, the only source of our supply, from our creator. And it's time that we all get together and stop this nonsense. And people like yourself are making amazing contributions to help us make that happen.
And I'm starting to be a bridge for American people and European people to come to Russia in the permaculture and organic natural building field. So I'm actually running a workshop August, September. I just need 10 people at least, so we can plan it. Basically 30% building. We're going to build that wooden vault, which, by the way, I sharing with your community a complimentary lesson. It's not a full course, it's a complimentary lesson, but basically a wooden arch, a vault, like a hobbit home. We're going to be building 2 vaults and with a rich cultural program, theaters, ballet, forest mushroom picking, river cruises through St. Petersburg, and going to see, of course, all the amazing architecture. There's so many vaults and domes in St. Petersburg, ancient, standing, strong, beautiful. So it's going to be a rich cultural program and of course, a natural building, because that's myself and my wife are organizing it. So I'm going to be that bridge to start bringing people here, because I want them to eventually start getting citizenship and possibly form partnerships with me, so we can get a 3D printer, which I'll show you now, and start printing not eco-villages. We'll take the best of the eco-villages, but little property development, we could say, but with a permaculture, exactly what you guys are doing with food forest, permaculture gardens, but a few homes, maybe 10 homes, all looking obviously south and have a little bit of privacy, but there's communal gardens should people want to come and join. So we'll take the best of co-housing, take the best of eco-village, but leave all the BS out of it, like dinners on Tuesdays and you have to, and all of that. Just property development with a 3D printer. And that's what I want to show you a little presentation, if I may, because I think pictures speak 1,000 words. So if
Please do.
Okay. So I think that one message that I want to share is that I've never worked for anybody else. From the schooling days, I started my own business, was decorating, events. And it's not because I'm, not to say I'm better or worse. It's just I view life through a somewhat a different lens. From 18, I had to make my own living, so I worked one day in a clothing store, and then I said I hated it, and my mom said, okay, you don't have to, and I started getting into decor. So I'd like to share this lens with you guys. That possibly there is an alternative way. So being a bit of an artist and inventor, working with sacred geometry, culture, little property I did for Jeff Lawton as my permaculture assignment. That's a home with a food forest on the east and then a garden on the west, so it doesn't block the sun. Food growing machine with the IBC tank. You can't see it here, but it's there. The 1,000-liter, 250-gallon IBC tank with 60 plants and microgreens. I'm holding a little compost tube there. That's a 3D render for it. That's a mobile trailer for Americans, by the way, that you can drag behind and clean all your water and have shower. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically I started always getting into toothpicks and polystyrene balls, which grew into decor for events, decorating events for insurance companies and banks and those guys. So my curvilinear touch got inspired by nature and working a lot with spandex. Obviously starting to move into sacred geometry and Fibonacci spiral, using school projectors to project onto fabric, and obviously getting my inspiration from biomimicry. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but yeah, that's my past. And then I started sketching little home ideas. It was inspired at the time by Buckminster Fuller, of course, 2006, and Mike Reynolds with his wetlands. And if you look at the two pictures on the left, I'll show you the actual prototype of this. So I moved onto the land in 2009, decided that I don't want to be living in the city, stuff it, and started building a permaculture school, which I had some experiments. There is a shower boiler that can boil water for hot showers for 5 people to shower. Had geodesic domes from Pacific Domes in Oregon. Asha Deliverance, maybe you guys know her. She sent her engineer to South Africa, and he taught our guys how to make domes. So I was making these geodesic domes, and then it was inspired by, how do I make my fabric solid, those fabric structures? So of course, try to solidify it. That didn't work that well. So I flew to Mexico. So here's some pictures from on the bottom right is the ferrocement workshop. Mike Reynolds here in Africa, he came down. Wow. Carl Earth in California. Carl Earth, I'm sure you guys know the sandbag story.
Oh yeah.
That's in Mexico. That's with the ferrocement. Of course, that's not my structure. That's Steve Kochler. Amazing. He basically took Gaudi and brought it down to human size. So I went back to South Africa and I started making little awning for the washing machine, then a water tank, and then I made a shell. Then I really ramped it up and I made a seashell of 33 feet by 18 foot shell with no central supports, just pillars around. Quite tricky, but it figured out. Then on the land, back to the land story, 2011, we bought our own land, also cash. Why I'm telling you that again, not to put myself up, but to just show you that I lost it. And in terms of the biggest realization that I want to bring is, doesn't matter where you live, and I'll get back to that. So that was my first attempt at homesteading. And 2012, we were getting scared that the world was going to come to the end, and I'm sinking geodesic spheres with Dreamcatcher. You can see a Dreamcatcher here that my family could hide in should the ground move. That's my first attempt at wetlands in 2011 from Mike Reynolds, a little gut I'm constructing. A mandala garden that I work sacred geometry, bad idea. Mandala gardens on a slope is a bad idea because the bottom it's concentric circles. Yeah, the bottom beds caught the water, the top beds diverted the water because you know what I mean. The contour lines. That's when I started learning permaculture. That's that pencil sketch I should take note of. That's basically this prototype, playing with trees and water and the catching of water, compiling a bit of the earthship with Cal Earth, little mosaic floors. So just, basically that's a little Russian bed, masonry heater, that you can sleep on, and there is a heater that you can warm up your bed. Everything is curvy, a little toilet, composting toilet with a sink, a bath, and wetlands, of course. The dome would be standing here. That's a top view from that. Then in South Africa, we ran a workshop, and this is one of my workshop. We ran a workshop on double dome, an air-crete from dome guide that I learned in the Cal Earth. So I'm applied the methods. That's in Nepal, one of my other workshops. There it is. That's me. That's in Ghana. So I started taking this method around the world and teaching others, and at the same time building and drawing. So that's for warmer climate. And then at the same time with my decor business, I was experimenting with what happens if we have a geodesic greenhouse, partial, like in this house. What would, will the dome hold? And of course it didn't hold. So I had to add additional struts. So through my decor business, 3D decor, I was experimenting with these shapes, attachments. And of course, now moving towards a colder climate, big inspiration, I take my hat off to Mike Reynolds. So the Earthship biotecture really inspired me. But the thing is that Taos has a lot more sun, it's a lot warmer. And I thought, well, what if we take this Earthship concept and bring it into a place which has 3 months of no sun, overcast. So I had to add some things like extending. In a nutshell, okay, Earthship dumps their heat from their greenhouse, okay, and I've decided what happens if we take that heat and instead of dumping it to outside, what if we take this heat from the top of the greenhouse and store it in the berm? So that's just some models I've been experimenting and building on the land. Pounding tires is very strenuous. So obviously the next question is I need some air channels. So this is the experiment I'm doing. I should have it successfully tested. I'm basically building a super adobe foundation, blowing up a plastic sleeve with a jumping castle fan, strong fan, and then applying a little bit of mesh. That mesh they use for plastering, and then using a hopper gun to spray on cement. And basically then I have my own channel to move air across.
It almost is like a radiator or something. I see where you're the idea is you're moving the heat in that way, right? In that sort of curvature pathway. Very fascinating. Yes. And those listening to the podcast here, you're probably going to want to watch this on Unite or YouTube or Odyssey, because the visuals here that Alosha is sharing are quite phenomenal. Sorry, keep going, sir.
So
so then
basically,
one question, Alosha, if you just clarify those air channels, that's constructed out of that plastic material, and then the ceramic or the earth material goes over that. Is that what I'm looking at here?
The channel is made of plastic blown up with a fan. Then the mesh, textile mesh, fiberglass mesh, not fiberglass. I think so. It's the one they use for, it's a soft one. It's like a soft mesh. It goes over it, and then a hopper gun is sprayed a cement and sand emulsion, maybe even lime. Okay. And then that settles as a vault, as a tunnel of my custom shape, custom length. And then the fan switches off, the plastic.
We're losing them again.
Hopefully, and then we have a channel that's catenary shape that can be buried. Does that make sense?
Interesting. So Yeah, and excuse questions, but I'm taking notes here for real ideas for us to do some of your things here. So is that buried deep enough also to get a geothermal effect besides just the the air circulation with the fan?
Well, this is the whole system as I'm seeing it now. So if you could, can you see this picture with the dome here, geodesic? So the air is basically taken from the top of the greenhouse. Yeah, it's channeled to a blue drum, a 50-gallon drum, which is underneath here. From that drum, the air distributes to the underneath the green. So these are the greenhouses. So they have the wetlands. If you guys are aware of the Earthship concept, they have those wetlands inside the greenhouse that treat the shower water, that delivers the water for the toilets, correct?
Yeah, so it's routing the gray for multi-use. It's all about stacking functions.
Exactly. So anything, as you guys know, if your soil is preheated, a little bit warm, not hot, but warm, things grow better in warmer soil than in cold soil. We're obviously on that, correct? Yeah, so absolutely. This is why I want to send some of that heat from the greenhouse underneath the house, underneath the greenhouses, and preheat those wetlands which grow food. Okay, so basically, instead of dumping the hot air from the greenhouses like Earthships do, I want to take that air, like if we just simplify it, and send it to the berm via a few pipes. Doesn't have to be so complex like you're seeing, but basically, because if we go back to this drawing, you can see that pink is the insulation. So all that mass is going to warm up for the 6 months in summer. Yeah, the insulation, just like in an Earthship, doesn't allow that heat to escape. And then that heat will be channeled back through those same pipes back to the house, preheating the actual home in winter. But then what happens if we don't? Oh, another thing is then how the hell are you going to send all the air along these pipes? So such concepts as like I've designed, and it's not my concept, I'm just picking back on some of the giants I've studied in nature, of course. So I'm not claiming, I'm just putting it all together into a sacred, geometrical, beautiful home that's buildable without debt. That's my only one, compilation here. Basically, 6-meter pipe that's 18 feet long, okay? These two. Behind is like a torch, so reflective material. In the front is polycarbonate. Okay, so basically that pipe, the black pipe, is going to get really, really hot. So what happens with hot pipe is that it starts pulling air because of the temperature difference. So we're going to launch the whole thing with a fan. Underneath the sauna, there is a little fan here. It's like a manifold. There it is, like a little earthworm, that little red thing. The fan will kick it in. And if you know, in the oven, sometimes in the flue, you have to get a little bit of a newspaper lit up to get that cold air pocket thrown out, correct? This will basically do the same effect. It will kickstart the hot air moving through the system, but then these solar chimneys will pick up on that and start, because they're so hot, they'll start sucking and pulling the air, and then the fan can be switched off, making this a passive system. So
how do you power Alosha? How do you power that little fan?
The little fan can be, because this whole system works in the sun. Okay, so for this solar chimneys to work, there needs to be sun. So this is a summer system. So in summer, it's storing the heat in the massive berm behind the home that's on the northern, eastern, and western side, just like an Earthship. But in Earthship, the wall is 3.5 feet thick before the insulation. We want to push it to 9 feet thick before the insulation. There is a man called John Haidt, umbrella home, solar passive umbrella home, and basically very much inspired by his concept of extending the insulation 9 feet out past the house, making the walls bigger, extending the insulation past the house. So as long as everything under this umbrella is dry, then the earth can start acting as this massive battery, even if it's wet. But the problem with wetness is that we're going to lose that heat. to the earth, to the surrounding earth. If it's dry, it starts accumulating and storing there. So that's basically it. We're cooling the house just like an airship with these two blue pipes with pink insulation. The reason for pink insulation is because this berm is going to be warm. So we don't want to have the cold air warming up. But the rest is basically these pipes that are pulling the air through, even from the sauna. The little super adobe sandbag dome is a sauna. Even from the top of the sauna, as you can see, we're sending the hot air through the berm. So nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. So that's the concept in essence. But then we have another issue. We have 3 months of no sun. So there's another gentleman called John Payne, hot composting method, the French guy. And he ran a hot composter that heated the water for 6 months at a time in cold France. So I'm going to show you my next design where we're basically attaching the composter to the house and taking the heat from the composter also in the cold months when there is no sun, pulling that hot air from the composter through. There it is behind. Wood chips, just wood chips. So we're taking waste once again from sawmills and that decomposing with a bit of manure. No smell. It's obviously not in the house. It's behind the house and can be loaded in and out easily. So the research I've done, we either burn the wood and we get so many kilowatts, or we compost the wood chips, the same amount of wood, and we get the same heat if multiplied by the amount of months it produces the heat, the same heat as burning the wood, but the one produces ash and the other one is producing megatons of nutritious compost that can be applied to our food forest and permaculture gardens.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if you have enough carbon on your land, Alosha, if you don't have to go get wood chips too. I mean, you can basically source this from your land, especially with your model where you've got a decent amount of acreage with, 6, 7 different structures on there, and you're chop and drop, and you take all that, some of that dropped carbon and stuff it in there. And if you have livestock, especially, cow dung or whatnot, yeah.
Exactly. So it's a system where we can collect compost from people in buckets, make it very simple. 5-gallon buckets get left there. When it's full, we carry it away. Obviously, we ask people to have certain things separated. But with this type of compost, I don't even think there'll be a problem. Usually in a worm compost, we don't put onion and lemon,
Yeah,
and
no citrus, no onion, yeah.
Yeah. But in this compost, I believe everything will go in this because of the heat. Another thing that we've added here is building it fractally. So the first room gets built with that dome greenhouse. And if that's what a family can afford for now to build, then they build that and they'll live like that. The other rooms can be built as finance becomes available. So everything is thought through. So the sheet, this is an entire sheet of polycarbonate. It's not, there's no wastage. This is the 18-foot by 6 foot, the exact size of what it's sold, I think, in our country, so it's not just a design. It's actually a thought through that the material does not get wasted. You don't have to cut it at all. You just bend the sheet and obviously on a frame, and then the vaults as well. This is a Cal Earth method. It uses a formwork that you put one layer of mesh. If you remember, I showed you that ferrocement, how tricky it was with all those meshes and rebar and more mesh and more chicken wire. Look at this. Again, my hat off to the Americans. And in this case, it was an Iranian architect, actually came from Iran, Nadir Khalili. And there's a simple formwork. This is in your own country. And one layer of mesh, and they pour the roof in one day. Then they remove the formwork and move it to the other side, and then they carry on. So this is a rapid way we can get structures built. And if we can keep them under the building code radar, especially by making them buriable with some earth, so they're not spotted by satellites, nobody's going to come at our door. So there's another concept. These are not my pictures now. This one is Philip Block. Look, this is a really amazing Gaudi style brick technology that's designed using a RhinoVolt 2 plugin. Look how much they've loaded, 3,000 kilograms on the lower part of the vault between the two domes. So it not only these structures are beautiful, they can, when I say they can be buried by 3 feet of earth and 3 feet of snow, I really, really, really mean it. But then you think, but this is really tricky to build. How do you do that? And I'll show you how. Again, now with the technology using augmented reality, you can see these fellows. Again, not my pictures. This is just where I'm going with my training center for kids and teenagers.
Wow. The one on the bottom left there, Alosha, it's interesting. I recently posted on Instagram a picture of a beehive where they left the frames out of the hive, and literally the bees created a structure that very much looks like that, where the airflow, is doing that. And that's the biomimicry right there, baby. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And
exactly.
Just a comment on that, Mike, if you don't mind, the beehives that I use are Ware top bar hives, and they allow bees to do just that. And you're absolutely correct when you look at the whole formation hanging from the top bar looks very similar to that. So I think the bees are doing a little biomimicry themselves there.
Well, it's good that you guys, thank you for that comment. Basically, it's bringing us to understand that the homes as they're currently built are not correct. And by no means I'm saying that the guys should be living in domes. God forbid, because domes are also not for everybody, not for all the rooms. Maybe if you have an art space, dome is great. But maybe as an office space, I would, maybe a dome is not a good space to do, or, so I'm not saying we should all live in domes, but we should definitely revisit the idea of these rectangular boxes that we all inhabit that are extremely costly. They're falling apart, like in Turkey right now, they're all breaking and damaging and killing people. So we need to look at alternative ways of building. How do we do that without debt? And, we have to get things as cheap as possible. So here, the guys are using augmented reality glasses, and they're showing them where to put every brick. I'm not saying we should be doing these as benches, but the vaults that I previously showed you, like this is Gustavino, again, came from Spain to America. This is Gustavino to thin tiles, very thin. Look at the thinness of these bricks. And but he's a master builder. To build like that, you need to study many years. If we can put on augmented reality and the glasses can show us where to put the bricks, we just need to apply a fast drying mortar, then anybody can build without even using a formwork. So this is the future. Again, Philip Block, a great mentor of mine, they are now printing small pieces, and putting them in tension, putting them on a waffle type of formwork. And once they remove the formwork, this has no glue between the pieces. All the pieces lock in, and very, very, very strong in, not tension, compression, very strong in compression. So it's obviously buttressed properly, so it can't, move outwards. But here the pieces are printed and put together. So this is where this girl is standing. That ledge would be what will hold that excess soil, that the house is buried in. So it will go up until that ledge. So this is how I'm seeing the architecture. This is the new home I'm designing that I'll be actually building this year. This is this training center for kids, EduLab, I call it. So this is how I'm seeing the architecture. It's really becomes alive.
It's very Tartarian of you. It's interesting, Alosha. I noticed you had interviewed Dan Winter, and we had interviewed him as well. And he speaks specifically to these sort of egg-like spire domes. I don't know what you would call those that you were just showing, and how those for what he calls, implosion, those create the type of energetics that are specific to life. And, aesthetically,
Yes.
not only are they beautiful, but we mentioned in the intro, nutrition, but we must realize that nutrition comes from the ethers, which the Tartarians understood. And so we're literally creating nutrition with our architecture, as biogeometry explains as well. So yes, this is so powerful. I mean, I envision future cities where they're healing again, where we have the proper architecture and we've cleansed the parasites out of the systems, and we can go back into the cities and experience culture in a way that is healing and beautiful.
Yes,
Alosha,
exactly.
if you could
Exactly.
comment, maybe, I did live in a round structure for a while, and my whole family noticed a complete difference in our consciousness, we'll just loosely say. So what comments could you make as far as the impact that living in structures like this versus a square box has on your whole being, as well as your thought processes, your emotion, your entire consciousness?
Bear, you know what? I'm probably going to say something, although I'm designing these structures that will have dream catchers that you can climb, and will have a kaleidoscope, will have a rainbow inside the greenhouse, a real rainbow. Peter Erickson, I got into contact with him, houses that will have calendars that will tell us when to plant potatoes and when Mercury will go into retrograde. Although I'm designing all of this, I'm going to say something that this is, by the way, these are my photos of natural pool construction and curvilinear beds, permaculture beds, a wall that withstood a river and flood. I'm going to finish this with maybe this picture, and just whilst people are looking at this picture of the eco community for 120 hectares, 70 families. This is what I have to say there, that if we haven't worked through our childhood trauma, okay, and if we have ill belief systems about this or that, like I'm not good enough and all of that, and which lead to I hate myself and all those terrible thoughts, which are very, very real. It does not matter whether you live in a box or a dome or sacred geometrical temple, you will still stuff it up. You will, not you, but people will stuff up their relationship with their wives and their partners. They'll stuff up their relationships with their children, and their children will hate them, and they'll never speak to their children. Everything will go haywire. It does not matter where we live. Really, it's not about that. Although we need to be moving towards the direction of building beautiful structures, and it should be the byproduct of how we feel inside. But I'm not going to lie to you, like I used to say before, oh, if you build yourself a dome, you're gonna, all your life's problems are gonna resolve. It's not true. In fact, a dome, I've heard many people that move into a dome and divorce within a month, or somebody dies within a month, It seems like stuff gets amplified in these structures. That's what I can say for myself. But I'm living in a terrible box now. Yes, I'm in a rental. I'm building myself quick 5 volts next to each other. Starting literally, just got land, got a container, putting a well next week, and I'm starting from scratch at 41. Literally lost everything. I literally blew $1 million on my ego, and and that was the payback. I've lost everything. I've lost a house, all these pictures I've built, everything I built, I've lost it. I gave it to the bank because this is what I speak of, and this is what I'm trying to get across, is that if you, I'm talking to the audience, if you guys haven't worked through your issues from what your father said, or what your teacher said, or what your mom said, and you carrying this ill beliefs with you, they're going to run you for the rest of your life until the end of your life. You'll say, shit, life didn't work out. I'll try next time. And we have a world where a lot of people are very lonely, that very few good, true, wholesome relationships are flourishing. Very few. The rest of the people are lonely and they speak these great things, but they can't make it in a family. And I think we should be aiming at working through our stuff so we can get ourselves into a balanced state, and we can attract a partner, help him or her get into that balanced state, build a family. Family unit is the first community. That's why I stopped looking for eco villages. I haven't showed you the most important pictures. This vault I built in Siberia, the wooden vault, and I ran there because I was literally shaking. Here's one more picture I'll quickly share for you guys. Yeah, I literally was shaking, and I ran thinking, no, now when I live in nature, because I tried nature, in nature I started shaking as well. Shaking, literally burning heart sensation, panic attack. I got to run. So I thought nature, let's leave the city. The nature's going to done it. No, in nature, things get worse because in the city we have theater, pub, traffic jams, loads of friends. When you get to nature, like your inner voice starts screaming. And I'm sure, Bear, you could comment on that. But I thought that when we get to nature, things are going to get good. It didn't help. Then I thought, let me go to a community. I went to a community with 5,000 people. 5,000 people. I thought, when I get to this community, man, I left my wife. I ran. I left her in the middle of the planting season. You know that was an asshole of me. I left her because I was had such a burning sensation. I was like, and eventually I started smoking again, tobacco. So I don't smoke anything. I don't drink. I don't smoke dope, nothing. So a cigarette, it helps for the beginning. And then a month later, I'm already shaking with a cigarette. And that's when I had this big realization. No tobacco, no community, no life in the most amazing nature in the middle of the forest, nothing, no sacred geometry, nothing will help you unless you've worked through that trauma stuff. And there is a specific process that my wife learned, and she's also teaching. But basically, that helps you to really get work through that stuff. It's a polarity process, and I'll hand over to you, and I can share a little bit later if there is time, if you guys would like me to share. But very, very important process, and that's the process that helped her to stop alcohol, helped me to stop smoking weed, and helped us to keep our family flourishing. Because I was on the verge of stuffing everything up because I just left her last summer. Because that burning sensation inside your chest. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? That usually you take a nice big fat spliff and it's like, and it goes away. Now, if you choose not to go into marijuana and alcohol, then that burning sensation really comes out. It travels between here and here, if I will be very specific. Very specific. It's between here, and that eventually starts burning, legs start shaking, and then when a person feels bad, what happens? You start hammering the closest person to you, your partner, your children. That's what happens. My son, I have a 17-year-old son. He wants to slaughter me. Yeah.
Did you say 17?
17-year-old son. Yeah, he doesn't speak to me. He hates me. Yeah, I have a friend. A sacred geometry, beautiful. He actually the friend of Dan Winters as well. He's got 5 children. Not all 5 of his children are not speaking to him. So this is not an isolated thing. This is a big issue. And if we don't deal with that and keep on running around thinking that sacred geometry and eco villages are going to save our asses and going to make it, it's no. So there are solutions. I can swear on those solutions, but it's daily process work that I've committed on doing from 13th of October last year. Daily specific work. And it's not meditation. In fact, it's the opposite of meditation because I go into my pain I go into those situations. The process is very simple, but I don't want to dominate the conversation. I'll share it in the next round, but later on. But it involves journaling with one main question: what's bothering me right now? What is it? What's that? And then I start writing, and then it comes through, and then you start unpacking that, and then you do a polarity exercise. You find the opposite polarity. You inhale, amplify, 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 exhale, amplify, amplify. I'm not, and then you do the opposite polar opposite, and then you amplify, and basically until you get nothingness, and then you fill yourself with light. But that's in a like very rough. But I'll need to obviously explain it a bit more in detail later on. But that helped, and not just helped; it helped us to get off drugs, alcohol. And we are in a good space, but it's a lot of analytical work, because the shit they've put us in, that our parents, because they had their own trauma, post-war and all of that, we are loaded with programs that don't serve us. And they run us, and there is a way to get out of those programs, but it's a lot of analytical work, a lot of these processes, unpacking, figuring out. There's a couple of different processes. When I become my son and I see how he sees me from his point of view, that's another process. There's a couple of processes, and they all mixed together, and you daily work. For me, it's daily work. As soon as I stop doing it daily, in a month, I'm back to tobacco, I'm back to weed, and I'm start spiraling down, divorce, and think of, where am I going to hang myself? And you just start looking for a tree where I'm going to hang myself. Not immediately, but 5-6 months later of these terrible thoughts, eventually you start thinking, I hate myself so much, I want to die. And maybe I'm alone. Maybe you think I'm a freak, but I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of unhappy people in the world. I'm probably the only idiot that's trying to say that, hey, there's something wrong here. So I'm sorry if it's not this answer you wanted.
No. I agree with a lot of what you say. And, you have a lot of good company, I think, if it makes you feel any better. I would just say that structures, just having worked in fields of biogeometry, radiesthesia, and sacred geometry for a long time, and also being in the healing arts, certain kinds of structures, absolutely, they're not going to fix you, but they do create a resonance. And if that resonance is conducive to bringing in more light, then that is going to shed more light into those shadows as well. Some people handle that by retreating back into the shadows because it isn't their time. And other people go to work like you're describing. I would also argue, though, that, yeah, it is a lot of work. I agree with that. But then staying in the shadows is a lot more difficult in the long run than just dealing with it. I'd also agree that meditation, which has its time and place, it's a tool, also brings us into more of a passive state. So I like to describe it as an active contemplation, where, like you described, you go into the heart of the matter, you deal with it, and you don't just think that you're going to erase all your thoughts by sitting in a corner somewhere. So this is very proactive. And of course, it's no different than building the structures that you're describing, learning everything, having the experience that you've gained in order to do so. But that is also going to be working on every level of our being, including our emotional body, including helping us clear up ancestral issues and so forth, simply because we're in our creative power. And that is, of course, what's going to burn through all those other things. That's just my take on it. And but yeah, I definitely agree with the core of what you're saying.
I think it's both. Although I've dedicated my entire life to develop the perfect temple home like a forest, because here in a northern hemisphere we spend so much indoors in winter, I want the jungle to be around us. From practically speaking, it's the little indents like strawberry planters in my walls, which are sculpted out of a bit of chicken wire and some, and then my walls are fully planted with edibles and even ornamentals. I want beautiful flourishing walls, greenery, okay, all around. In the greenhouse that is the shape of that half onion, like a slice of the church onion shape, a Russian onion shape, yeah. And by the way, the greenhouse doesn't have to be that shape. But in our climate, we have so much snow that the angle of that onion allows for the snow to slide off. So not only these shapes are beautiful, they're very practical, but you mustn't get attached to, like, I've shown you various greenhouses, even the Earthship greenhouse is great. But although I've dedicated my whole life on developing that temple home that will have a kaleidoscope inside where children can climb throughout winter time and actually engage by planting and climbing and learning. There'll be a microscope there where we can test the soil of what we're doing to the soil. Is it improving? There'll be earthworms behind the glass so the children can see the decomposing process visually. Although I've dedicated my house my life on developing a house as a temple, they're both going to play a role. I just don't want people to think, I don't want to be a liar and say that, if you get yourself a home, of course, my sales would crank up and I'd start selling mega, but I don't want to lie anymore, because some of the best months of my life, literally in the last few months, is when I started doing the process work. And everything changed. I'm in a shit rental place, sorry to say, but now I can move into the land at 41. After losing everything with all that, literally $1 million, I'm not going to lie. I had a branch in Dubai. You can Google right now, 3D decor, Alësha Lynov, Middle East. You'll see I had a branch in Dubai. I lost that all as well. So now at 41 and a half, almost 42, the same day as Mahatma Gandhi, by the way, I'm starting on the land from scratch. But I see it so clearly because I'm in such a good space that the excavator came last week and they gave us a perfect sand slab because it's a bit of a high water table. So it just all working out well. And meditation has a very key place in this process, because when I sit there and I'm, what should I work on? What is this burning sensation? Of course, I go into a meditative state. What I wanted to say, I don't, do meditation traditional way, like thoughts are like clouds flying by. I have an intention of, I want to work through this. I have an uncomfortable feeling inside my chest. What is it? I close my eyes. I spend a few minutes in a meditation. Boom, a thought comes through. I'm 6 years old. I'm sitting in a kindergarten and I'm walking alone to a kindergarten. Why am I alone? And that's what happened. And I start unpacking that. So meditation is, of course, it has a place. So it's both. It's the structure, it's the garden. But I had the garden. I lost the garden. You know what I mean?
I think your story is important, though, because a lot of people these days are finding themselves in a situation where they would perceive as lack of funds or limitations financially. And what I love about a lot of your work and what you bring to it is that you're teaching people how to do this themselves and also do it in an affordable way. So perhaps your journey kind of lent, just sort of an inclination to develop those areas more. So can you tell us how, some of your work is possible along these lines for everybody?
Well, this amazing wooden vault that I'm sharing with you is this structure. This complete vault cost us $1,000. Literally, it's 333 square feet. One piece of plywood gave me a 15-foot long table. One piece of plywood. Wow. Just by using a bit of a jigsaw. This is all by hand, 1 month of work, 2 people. So you and your partner, in 1 month, you can build yourself a home. And I've just done it last September. We started on 15th of September. And before snow, I moved in and we were working only 4 hours a day. Only 4 hours a day. So this is very doable, even for somebody that has a business or goes to work. This is very achievable. So in terms of affordability, first of all, one needs to scratch around for material. So foundations, tire foundations are perfect because they're free, they're strong, and you can pound absolutely anything into them except wet clay. Wet clay, no good because it just gets mushy.
Could you repeat that? What kind of foundations?
Tire, earthship style tire foundation.
Tire. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't make that
Very
up. Okay,
good.
thank you.
No off-gassing, and they're in there. For the walls,
That is
Alosha,
that is one of the criticisms of the tire is that people say they do off gas. So you're saying that isn't a worry to have.
I can't comment. We've all seen the same document that Mike Reynolds presented, that they did some study 25 years back, and we don't know if it's true or not. What I can say is that I wouldn't build my whole house from tires like earthships do, because A, I wouldn't be able to convince anybody in our country to do that. And B, I can't, maybe energetically living in a tire house. And C, they are very, very, very hard to pound. I had COVID. I had COVID. I don't know what you guys think about COVID. It doesn't matter. I got really, really sick, and I lost 20% of my lungs. I'm still crackling like little crinkly paper every time I breathe a full lungful. I can't pound tires anymore. I can do only 4 tires per day, and I'm dead. So building a house from 700 tires like a typical earthship, I think it's a crap idea. I'm not gonna lie. But what I wanted to show you is this new printers. You're all seeing printers coming out now, but the printers are becoming so affordable. This printer, AMT company here in Russia, and it's $120,000. It does 33 feet by 33 feet by 18 foot high.
Yeah, I've seen this. My son showed me this because my son saved up his allowance money or his for doing chores and bought a 3D printer for like $250 and makes all these cool little gadgets for around the house. Like I've got a iPhone holder he made for me here, and this is like great because it's decentralized and you're empowered, sovereign, doing it yourself. However, on these massive, he was showing me this, they're literally printing homes with these printers, which is nuts. What is the sort of material that they're using? Is it the same that the smaller printers are using, or is this a different type of material?
No. Okay, so this is what I've actually watched a video from the one from American people who are doing the printers and the Russians. Basically, Mike, to answer short, you can print almost out of anything. People are printing out of clay, just shoot out like toothpaste. People are printing a lime type of emulsion, infused with lime, that's working quite well. And of course, the cement and sand. The key is how fast does this thing harden before the next layer can be applied. So you can print out of anything, but if that thing in 5 hours still wetish, and then you just have to wait until the next day to apply the next layer. So you can print pretty much out of anything. You all seen pictures in Spain. The guys printed out of clay. In America, the new type of geopolymer sand extrusion. And why I'm showing this picture next to my Super Adobe water tank, this is my picture of a Super Adobe water tank attached to a wall, because the process of earth bag is exactly the same to 3D printing. The only difference is that the earth bag, if you look at my hands, is 30 or in inches. Let me give you in inches. 12 inches wide by 1 inch high. I'll go in centimeters, sorry. 30 centimeters wide by 10 centimeters high. The printing extrusion is 3 centimeters wide by 1 centimeter. It's exactly 10 times less, the little sausage that comes out of the printer. So the printers are coming down in price. What 5 years back seemed like crazy, but $120,000, even if we just end up printing one little village with 10 homes, for property development, that, for example, Bear decides to, get little 10 homes that he wants to maybe subdivide and sell off just to 10 friends, 10 grand per home, and that thing is paid off. I think it's something that we can look at. And then, as you see, in the walls are double cavity. So then the next question is, well, how the hell will that work with this, home that I'm designing? Well, it can, because the walls that we want to transfer heat, the law of thermodynamics, they need to be heavy. So we ram earth in between the double walls, not just maybe 20 inches at a time, 10 inches at a time, not bigger. Ram it, then the printer builds another, ram the earth in between the double walls, and the walls that we want to stop the heat from going through, we fill with insulative. And the best insulation, there's hempcrete, is good, polystyrene aircrete. And polystyrene, we can get, there is a guy on YouTube, just Google polystyrene aircrete. You'll see him. He's basically taking polystyrene from the furniture shops. They're literally paying him money to take the stuff away. He made a machine with an upside down lawnmower and a 50-gallon bucket. He's shredding the polystyrene, mixing it with aircrete. Aircrete is already a hell of an insulative, and is making this super insane R-value insulation for almost for free. And that stuff can be put into those double cavity walls for where we want them not to transfer the heat.
I think one of the core principles here of permaculture especially is you got to know where you're at. There's so many different ways to insulate, and just look at what your climate is and where you're at and what you have available, and go from there. What I do
Mike,
love about
that is so important. That is so important what you just said. Thank you for mentioning, because people say, it is crucial, because if I'm out in the field and I have a lot of straw growing, then I could speak to a local farmer. I can organize those straw bales for very cheap, and I can mix straw or shred straw and make some type of very light. I could even fill my walls with straw if I just maybe mix it with something so the mice don't breed in there, or, so then I have a straw type of insulative material, or ram straw in my walls. If I'm living next to the city and polystyrene is available, use it. If I am in an area of clay, why not look at burning? If we're developing villages of this stuff, why not look at developing our own bricks from clay? There is an expanded clay, little pellets. Maybe you've seen them. They're called, they're called keramzit in our country. They're lightweight little pellets, very lightweight and very, very strong, similar to pumice and scoria. So that's an excellent insulation, and that's load bearing. So you can put a massive home on top of that. So it's very dependent on where you're at, of what to use. So please do the research. But the arches that I've shown you, those wooden arches for $1,000, people say to me, yeah, but the timber is very expensive. Guys, I've just looked at the secondhand yards in America that sell wood from construction site. They are having sheets and sheets and sheets of those big sheets of plywood going for almost nothing. It just needs a little metal brush to scratch that cement. They use them for formwork and the stuff. Just a little bit of work, and you have A-grade plywood, 1 inch thick, okay, that you can cut into strips of 6 inches long with a table saw, or even a circular saw. And those strips can be joined together without glue, just with nails, like I shown you in that lesson that I posted for your community today. Just with nails, 5 layers of that plywood joins, and you have a mother of an arch. And 5 of those arches give you an entire room. Check that lesson out.
I posted that lesson link in the chat. I'll put it in the show links, the show notes below, you guys. And that's the beautiful thing about commercial building. And even though it's disgusting to see them putting up these monstrosities and in the United States, and I don't know about in Russia, but we of course have got these mega developments that they put out that it's just the block homes stacked together with barely a yard, but there's so much waste in that building style that we can take and use ourselves, as you're saying. So what we call upcycling or recycling is what we do on the land. Bear can speak to it right now. Like literally our shipping system and our kitchen is built from reclaimed wood that Mark Guyver, who works for us, is a master at.
Yeah, we have a brilliant builder that isn't into the living architecture so much, but he's masterful at recycling materials. So we have really unique artistic buildings on the land here, and it's all from recycled. We never go out to Home Depot and buy new windows or anything. Everything's recycled, and a lot of it's for free. And when it's done, it all looks brand new and gorgeous. So, yeah, and there's, especially in this country here where it's a throwaway society, there are so many materials available for everybody if you just get out there and learn how to scrounge. And it's actually kind of fun. It's like a treasure hunt. You know, we come home, we have another building we're going to do off the side of the hill that's going down to our river. It's going to be a nice little gazebo house. We got some windows that are like these thick glass green, structures. So we're going to have an entire glass roof. And anyway, it's just really fun, and it's all for free. You just have to have an imagination.
Let's talk about glass. You won't believe how much I glassed this entire wall for. Maybe take a guess. So it's 18-foot diameter wall of the vault. So the sides are covered, the front is fully open, and it's all glassed. Guess how much all of this with the frame cost us?
Well, I mean, I would say if you were buying that traditionally from a store, that's, and depending on how thick it is, and if it's
triple pane, triple
okay,
glass.
So that would be
pane.
Thousands of dollars of US dollars.
$100. $100.
That's
wow.
Crazy.
Where'd you find?
If you
where is it from?
One,
I typed secondhand glass, triple pane. They make mistakes sometimes, like they build and they just get their calculations wrong and have all the glasses standing. They just want to get rid of them. I picked up all the glass for $100. And instead, the next question is, but what about frames? You don't need frames. What is that? A tube, it's like about 2 inches wide. They use it to insulate pipes, PVC pipes, so they don't freeze. We basically cut a groove into a wood slab. It's a piece of a bar. If you take a wood and you cut off a piece that in timber, they throw it away. We took that, we cut a little ridge inside with a chainsaw and stuffed that thing in, and that accepted the glass straight into it. So should there be any movement in the earth or the clay settling, because that thing is two inches thick, the glass just floats so nicely into it. And then we just sculpted the wood around the glass. So we didn't build the frames, we put the glass one piece at a time, and then we put the frame around the glass as it was standing.
You can also find in junkyards and stuff, you can find glass from vehicles, which is an amazing resource because, that's very strong glass from old cars, old recreation vehicles, etc. Boats. And it'll
barely have a crack. Let me share with you what idea I had recently for the vehicle glass, because putting it in a greenhouse might be tricky, although you can sculpt the frame around it with maybe a bit of ferrocement. But a really good use for vehicle glass, I went to Oceanarium the other day, where they have fish and turtles and all these beautiful, amazing sea creatures. And what they do is they have like a wall which can be done out of super adobe, and they have a gap. And in that gap, they put a glass, which is also going at the curvature. So I thought, this is perfect. So if we can have a wall, and then we have the curvature, and we insert a vehicle glass with, there's a way to figure out so it stays. We silicone nicely the edges, waterproof, if you use a little extra silicone when needed. Silicone is very strong. You can lift up the water. It's all waterproofed, of course. The walls have done that in our water course. By the way, how to waterproof super adobe. using bitumen type of geotextile with bitumen. And you have basically a pond that you can look into with little fish and I'm obviously thinking of education for children. So you can submerge them into this experience using old car type windscreens. Amazing. No need to buy. This scrounging around, of course, if you go into Home Depot and you want it fast and you want it now, get prepared to climb into debt for 25 years.
Yeah.
But
well, and like the other thing too, the other thing too for vehicle glass is like making cold frames and stuff. You can get really creative with your beds, your outdoor beds, and doing like cold frames. Go ahead, Bear.
Just a comment about one comment about getting it fast is that's not a reality anymore. You know, we have supply chain issues. And if you were to go into Home Depot right now and get a 3x3 window, it's going to not only cost you $400, but you're probably going to have to wait about 2 to 3 months before they get it. So,
same with stuff like tin, like we're, working with tin, like it's so cheap, it's so thin and feeble now. Like it's pathetic what you get out of Home Depot because they're cutting every corner on the resources side of things, so that the quality has gone so far down compared to where if you upcycle, things from even just 5-10 years ago, we found are so much better quality than what you can get now in a major big box store.
Yeah. I hear you. Even in our country, I think it's a thing of capitalism. It's just the way it goes, because in our country it's the same. Very interesting what you just mentioned, but when they want to build something, they try and find things that were made in USSR days, 30 years and older, and the steel thickness of objects made, like gas bottles, for example, for even pan art or anything, the steel thickness and the quality of steel was far superior before, because it wasn't about profits. It was about giving products that last long. So you are right that the tin will become thinner now, and everything. So scrouge for old things. But most of all, it's really great. I'm excited that you guys are building up your farm on a shoestring budget. Hey, Bear, that's great.
I will say this too, going back to the internal work, because that's what we're all about here, as you were mentioning, Alosha, with your amazing journey. And I think a lot of people are going to really resonate with that. But in the end, the external always comes from the internal. So right now we look across the world and we see boxes of cheap plywood built structures that have been popped up in mini malls all across America. And that is a direct representation of the consciousness, right? Yeah. Of the materialistic sort of victimhood, lack of understanding of what we are, who we are, and where we come from. But as you are showing, and how Bear mentioned in the beginning, this great awakening that is happening, that transcends country barriers and boundaries. As we grow internally, which I know is happening, I'm seeing it in our community, I'm seeing it at our events, Music and Sky, and the workshops we do, then that will externalize into these beautiful architectural structures and farms and kins domains from the Anastasia, mindset and all this stuff. And would you mind doing me a favor, Alosha? Could you show, you showed this amazing graphic of like this community sort of permaculture on the land. It was like of a whole, this. Like this, I foresee in the future, I don't know how long, because time's a construct, but looking down an eagle eye over the world, over the plain, however you want to envision this land we live on, that is our future, seeing that. And that is a representation of the consciousness evolution, the revolution that's happening.
Yeah, so this drawing we did together with Paul Richardson, another architect. Together, we did it for specific land of 120 hectares in the south of Russia. And we walked the land left, right, up and down. All the roads are on contour lines. Very important, because then the roads can be water harvesting solutions, as Bear would know. But basically, here is the entrance. It looks like a guitar. That's the central entrance, with the market and the reception and basically the community split into various zones. So this is the living zone. So that's that's about 1 acre plots. 71 acre plots. They've got little dome, they've got little ponds, they have a living fence, like in Anastasia movement, a living fence made of shrubs and trees. Basically, and all of these features are on the hills. This is a hill, this is a hill. There's a school of Shitinian, a Tekos school, amazing school, Tekos. I visited them. Maybe just Google it, Tekos, Tekos. They closed it down for some reason. But a hobbit little master craftsman studio here, a permaculture space with all the garden beds, little greenhouses here, aquaculture, festival grounds with little amphitheater, a little for kids and for adults, theater, apple orchards. So lots of little cooperatives. So like, for example, Mike will own some domes here, and he says, okay, I want to rent these out next to a pond. Let's say Bear says, I've got an apple orchard here, and I'll be processing apples and making apple juice and making apple pie. So it does have a few commercial ventures, of course, to drive this whole thing. It's got a conference center here that doubles up as a restaurant. Obviously, everything is stacking function. That's my place of Bioarchitecture Academy. That's what's got empty pieces of earth that we can build up with students that come for different workshops. Earthship Hotel here on the corners, again, all designed to contour lines. So there's little earthships, little submerged. So it's a vision, but this vision got torn apart by, again, trauma and ego, because the owner of the land, he came and he put 4 pegs here, and he says, okay, I'm going to be planting 14,000 apple trees here. And I'm like, and I asked him a question, but we're doing this together. This is a community, cooperation, He says, it's my land, buddy. I'm planting apples here tomorrow. And boom, I left the next day. And that was that. That was 3 months of work. And this is how it always ends. It ends exactly like that with a lot of communities. It's, Mike, I don't know when we're going to be ready for something like this. The way I see it now is we get together, we buy ourselves a printer, we build 10 homes, and we design it well. So some of these features we implement, like a communal garden, like a food forest. Davies Homes, again in America. Have you seen Davies Homes? How they planted all the swales and all the earthworks. 30 years later, there's fruit trees everywhere. Ladders are lying there. Kids are climbing up, picking fruit. Maybe something to combine property development, so people organize it and sell these whole villages. And I want to be doing that for Americans who want to relocate to Russia, to get citizenship, invest into this business with me, so we can buy a 3D printer and we can start printing villages to start mass immigration of Americans from America. Because the saddest thing for me is to see that most of Americans can't even see, maybe they can, that it's what is fascism? Where is fascism? Let me tell you guys, if you on your land have to get permission to build a home of any size, that is fascism. If on your land you cannot harvest rainwater and you're going to be jailed, that is fascism. If you are forced to send your children to school, that is fascism. So trying to fight against all of this is a battle I believe we cannot win right now. So I invite you to relocate, to consider visiting Russia for our live workshop, which we're going to learn 2 methods of building. Worst scenario, you come back, you have, you know how to build a wooden vault and an stabilized earthen cement vault, which you can also learn from Cal Earth, by the way. And you'll learn about our country. We'll go and visit a few communities. We'll take you on a rich cultural tour to St. Petersburg. We'll go together with my wife, hire a bus, and give you a little journey of our architecture and our theaters and our ballet. And from there on, if you are interested, why not consider relocating, learning the language? It is an amazing, friendly country, friendly people, friendly. I've seen a black guy today the only black guy in Russia, in St. Petersburg. And I asked him, how's it for you? Because he's like, where are you from? He's from Zimbabwe. Like, hey, I'm from South Africa. And I asked him, so how are the people for you? I mean, you're the only black guy in a whole, almost, I think maybe there's 5 black people in a whole city. I'm over, but literally, it's literally, and how are people for you? He says, they are so friendly to me. So please, what you hear about our country and about our people, it's not true. The people are really, 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 really friendly. And to Americans, because we know, and people know that it's not the Americans that are, doing these things. It's the 1%. The whole world knows that the 1% of the bastards are causing all the trouble. But at the same time, so our people are friendly to your people, so don't worry about it at all. But at the same time, I also, on another subject, want to mention to you that should they put most of the other people in power who are screaming now, the hell with Biden and the hell with this, if they put any of these people in power, the problem is in a few years' time, they'll be just as corrupt and messed up, because if people who haven't worked through the traumas are going to end up there, they're going to cause the same problems as the current people in power. Although from this point, they're saying that's not right, we would do it differently. True as Bob, they wouldn't do it differently. And that's the scariest thing. So again, we'll go to the inner world in order to change our world. But Mike, just hold on. But at the same time, it's very important where we start our journey, because if you're living in a country that's ridden with laws that you cannot build anything bigger than 150 square foot, why struggle? Why live hiding if you can move to a country where you can build up to 60 feet high tomorrow and move into it without asking anybody anything? Where you can buy right now 2 hectares, 8, 9, 10 acres of land with a home that you'll need to do some renovation for $500. That's what they're selling homes in the villages. 10 acres with a home to renovate for $500. That's the prices in our country. With water on the riverfront right now, $500, move in tomorrow. We'll need to do a bit of renovation. We bought a house like that for $3,000. It was beautiful in an abandoned village, and they're running electricity to our home 2,000 feet for $32. For $32, they're running 2,000 feet of electricity to us. This is the prices. This is how our country cares for the people. It's an amazing country, and I want you to consider moving here.
I was just going to ask Bear real quick, how's the land ownership rights there compared to something like the United States? And I mean, do you own the land outright? Is there, fear of it being confiscated? What's the citizenship process? And then also,
the citizenship is two. There's a few ways to get citizenship. One is you obviously marry somebody. The other one is you learn the language, which is rather tricky. You'll learn it eventually, but to try and get citizenship on the language story is going to be hard. So finding a partner or language, business, investment. So that's why I urge you to consider, because I'm in a good space, and to consider investing into a business that can build villages. So one of them to get a citizenship is to invest into a business, and the other one is to invest into a property. So you come and buy either one of these guys from us, or you buy a flat in Moscow and St. Petersburg that you can rent out, and buying that immediately gives you a citizenship. And right now they've opened a program. If you have some skills, they give you citizenship as well. If you have skills and you're offering some skills to the country, they'll take your open heart with open arms. And that's why we're planning this workshop in August, September. So folk that want to consider studying here or relocating or opening a business or looking for property or just getting to know anything about these citizenship stories, we're going to be actually sharing that with the folks. So any inquisitive mind that wants to learn or with possibility to relocate, that's why I invite to this workshop, because there's going to be other English-speaking people. And that's why I want to build these villages, because 10 Americans or Europeans or English-speaking people living in a little village together will be an easier start from there on to versus buying and you're surrounded by all Russian people. Although our St. Petersburg, everything's in dual language, English and Russian, all the train stations, all the buses, everything, all the street markings, it's all, it's very much English orientated as well.
Sorry, I'm laughing because in the chat, in the chat, we're saying people are laughing how to become a citizen in Russia. Some pretty funny comments, but I just said, if you can outdrink the local magister you're in. Go ahead, Bear.
So, that would be an amazing adventure, just going and doing your workshop over there. Just a couple comments. America, I sort of liken to the pre-crumbling of the Berlin Wall. We're kind of in that state right now, and I think it's just about to come down. Now, there are many of us in this country that we are patriotic in that we want to see the return of our original republic. And, and at that time, of course, we didn't have to ask for permission. We didn't have all these rules and regulations. So what we've been doing here at Alfa Vedic, is we conduct workshops, we network with other people that are involved with the same thing to teach Americans that our original infrastructure for the Republic is perhaps tops in the world, if you don't mind me saying that, because it was, built upon the concept that every man and woman was a sovereign. So on our parcels of land, what many of us are doing are getting rid of the contracts that have made us vulnerable, to all these rules and regulations, and reverting back to our original titles of property, and also reverting back to our original status before the 14th Amendment. Yes,
the free man process.
Kind of. That was the early precursor of a more sophisticated movement that's underway right now. So we aren't going to abandon any country, including America. And I believe those of us in every country, every country has an oversoul. It has its own essence. And as I've already mentioned, I have a great affinity for your part of the world. But we will all be stronger if we take care of business. I have no problem imagining relocating to Russia. I mean, it would be an immense adventure and wonderful people. But I think we're all going to be stronger on this entire planet when we regain our sovereignty in every single location. Because if that doesn't happen, or if that were to happen, then Russia, as an example, doesn't have to worry about being invaded by NATO or being vulnerable to our leaders stealing all of our resources and sending it over to create a world war in your part of the world. So I think we all have business to attend to no matter where we live. And, in the meantime, with what you're talking about, it's just one of those great ways to build bridges, as we said, from the onset today, and realize, hey, we're all kind of in the same boat. And, what we need to do is get rid of all the weak links so that we can all live in peace, all prosper, and also have the freedom to move across boundaries if we find that, hey, we have more of an inclination to live in a different country, then we can freely move that way. Right now we have political boundaries that are used to weaponize people against us. Wherever we live, we're being invaded right now from everybody in the world because it's being weaponized by bringing all these people in to dilute our whole standard of living and, make us pay for it at the same time. So we're in a real interesting situation. I think we're at that critical mass period right now, and the Berlin Wall of America is about to crumble down. So that will make it even that much easier for people like myself just to hop on a plane and go visit you guys in Russia, move there, and also attend your workshops, which I would love to do.
There, I hear you about we all have our businesses to attend to. The thing is, I'm just reading a book by. You remember a few years back there was a big hurdle of that Russian got into your Trump elections. You remember that whole story? And they jailed this lady by the name of Butina, one letter different to Putin. Her book just came out, okay? And she spent 2 years in American jail. And the stories that she's speaking about there is, it puts your hair in hand. Basically, they are mass grabbing people, mass. Almost everybody that's crossing the border, they're thinking they're going to a free land. They're grabbing those people off the streets and they're jailing them in mass, building massive amount of prisons. It's all the old Black and Latino, of course, but she was the only white there, but still. She spoke of stories and they're basically making produce for Amway, believe it or not. Amway, the organic, natural, I don't know if they're organic, but this is what she speak of. They're making products for them and they're getting paid something like a very small amount of money and they're all in these metal shingles on their legs. It's horror stories. So what I'm trying to say is that if you, like now it's becoming more difficult. I believe, I don't know if I'm wrong, but I believe you can't leave your country without getting a vaccine. So there's some things that are becoming that are just not right. Like in our country, you can go anywhere without getting a vaccine or coming back without getting any vaccine. So in your country, it's changing that and it's becoming difficult to leave the country because you need this, that, and the other. And I am just feeling that in a few years' time, even with the whole sovereignty, what you speak of, because I also tried the whole free man process and I stole the bank for 4 years. They couldn't take my house away because I asked them, where's the original signature on, all of that? And they couldn't find it. Eventually they found it and they gave it to me. And because I wasn't well researched like you are and didn't study this thing, because there was thousands of pages, you either really get into the whole free man sovereignty thing, which you really got to know your shit. And I'm sure if you know your shit, you can definitely get that sovereignty. But do I spend thousands of hours trying to read all these piles of documents? Or do I develop a home and follow my passion and follow permaculture and plant that food forest? And I've chosen to plant the food forest and focus on bioarchitecture. And that's why I didn't have an argument to the bank when they brought me the story. So what I'm trying to say is that a few people becoming sovereign in America like yourselves ain't going to stop nature in the next 10 years to attack. They've already attacked 50 countries in the last 50 years. Libya was a prosperous country. They destroyed it. Serbia, they destroyed. You know what I mean? So I'm just feeling that almost there's two things that I don't believe that a few people who got turning sovereign are going to stop this whole beast. And secondly, I don't think in a few years it might be a lot more difficult because I've seen it in South Africa when COVID hit. Instead of 2 people standing at the traffic light begging for food, there were suddenly 25 people at each traffic light begging for food, and the crime went right up. I've had a gun to my head. I had a knife to my head in South Africa. I had 9 robberies. I know what it's like living in a country that has a big inequality. And I feel that America could be very similar in that way, that there's a lot of people who have not. And as soon as there's stopped being fed by the state, being given free food, which they get, I believe right now, that those people without gardens, without permaculture gardens, will come to those that have the gardens. And that's all I want to say is that the difference between our country, and it's not to put up, down, or suppress or say you're worse. It's not about that. It's about people living, thriving together. That's all it's about. But in our country, 95% of people grow organic gardens. In South Africa, and I'm talking about potato, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, onion, like basics, and a shitload of apple trees and pear trees, okay? In South Africa, we drove for 2,000 miles with a camera trying to find a garden. We found one garden and it had some spinach growing in it. The rest, they just sweep the clay. I'm not talking about America, I'm talking about Africa. They sweep the clay and they just sweep the clay and they keep it clean of all the leaves. They sweep their pathways and they sweep their gardens free of leaves and potential mulch, and they're turning it into desert. So with the question I ask, would you want to live in a country where has nobody's planting the food, or would you want, and how safe is it? It's not about where do you want to live. How safe is it? Does it have a future? A country, I don't know, Mike. If you feel honestly that there is work for you guys to do that work. But at the same time, know that if any of you have a resonance to try out another country, we have a workshop coming up, and $1,600 for 2.5 weeks of all accommodation, all transfers, all travel, amazing accommodation, and all the food for $1,600.
That's amazing. Let's make sure we have the link below. So send us the link in the chat.
I'll post it right now.
And
anybody that considers it, at least consider it. That's all I'm saying.
I would love to go to Russia and have that experience.
Would be so amazing.
It would be awesome.
And how about your go ahead, Mike. I was just going to ask about online training as well, but what were you going to say, Mike?
No, let's do the online training thing, and then I was going to touch on something. In terms of your links do you do online remote training as well, Alosha?
Yeah, I have 4 courses, and 2 of them I'm really proud of. I have the Dome course, which is very old, so I'm not going to mention it. I have the water course where I teach 3 types of water tanks, a biochar filter, which I learned from American, a DIY biochar filter, amazing. Drinking water, 300 liters a day, 75 gallons. But the courses I'm really, really proud of, that I script every lesson. I write script, I use a voiceover, and I use the footage with this. So very nicely structured is the Waterlarian course, which is this Earthship hybrid. That's what I call it. It's really inspired by an Earthship, but it's a sacred geometrical home with a wetland. That's inspired by the Earthship, but for a variety of climates, especially also for cold climate, but we'll also work in hot climate because I have cooling tubes, just like an Earthship. So it's this wooden vault that I shared with you. I've sent you one lesson. And then the other course that I'm proud of is the drawing course, where we teach you how to draw a blueprint, first on graph paper of this very much the same home that's right behind my screen. And then we take it into Rhino 3D, which I provide, by the way. And basically learn how to draw a home in 3D and the mechanics behind it. So you can draw your own home. That's the one course. And you can build your own home. That's the other course. Simple as that. And they both have Zoom weekly support. So every Saturday and Sunday, we jump in for one of the Saturdays for the drawing course, Sunday for the Waterlarian course. We jump online, and any questions you have about a lesson that was released during the week, you ask questions and we unpack it. We have 90
That's
people
awesome.
right now, and it's really nice.
Amazing.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this technology as well. People can get into the fear mindset that's technocratic control system that's leading us all into a digital hellscape. No, like we use the tools to create beauty. And so you are bringing people from all over the world together online to learn how to, create beauty in their backyard. And that's phenomenal and empowering. And thank you for that amazing work you're doing, Alosha. And for people to go out to Russia and see it in person is an extremely powerful and impactful modality. I think I wanted to bring it back to to Casey, because that great mystic who's American was literally saying Russia was going to be our savior. And maybe that's how it's going to work, is it's going to lead the way to help Americans remember who we are, because when it comes down to core principles, first principles, America is really the primo in terms of sovereignty and freedom and the spirit of freedom, right? And of course, it's been hijacked by the banksters, by those who want to bring darkness to the world. And Russia could be our partner towards that greater enlightenment and bringing back freedom here. And that's why I did open up that people were leaving the cities here, Alosha, because they aren't safe. A lot of the cities aren't safe anymore.
And for the
on the contrary, I've moved next to the city because it is so safe. Really, really safe. I've never felt safer. We don't lock our doors. We're an hour away from the city, and it's amazing. So that's the balance I found, is to be in a beautiful nature, but jump on a speed train, and I'm 8 million people. And I found a beautiful balance after everything I've tried. That's where I've got to. Bear, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say, for the young American gentleman, you never know, you might move to Russia and hook up with a Anastasia-like forest nymph and live happily ever after. So
yeah. Well, talking about Anastasia, those are the books that inspired me to relocate back to Russia from South Africa. I read them 10 years back, and I'm like, I was crying and laughing and crying and laughing for the whole 9 books. And then eventually I was the dream that, but after visiting these eco villages, I realized it's not the way. It's not the way. Even if 20 families join together, guys, after 10 years, you're going to have those 20 families up your neck. Sorry to say. That's why I chose the city, living not too far from the city, so it's good access, is the best choice, because we don't have to all live together. Although where I'm seeing it, have you guys seen Arco Santi by Paolo Soleri again in America? Arco Santi. It's they make beautiful brass bells, and it's a type of urban environment they've created. I think it's Arizona. I might be wrong. No, just check it out, Arco Santi. So this is it's a mixture between makerspace. Do you know a concept in America called makerspace, like a rental of equipment? Yeah. There's 3D printers and laser cutters and all of that. So basically a lab where people can come together and play. There are some shelters that people can live on, but like architects and landscape artists and permaculturists can come and play together, develop a product that can feed financially the whole thing. And then, they go their ways, maybe like 3 months they spend together. It's a mixture of Venus Project and community living.
It's in Arizona. In Arizona, yeah. And I mean, that's the Alfa Vedic model is, for one, we are all about sovereignty on the land and being really involved with your family and core family values. And it's all the internal up. It's living a moral life and respecting the land. And in here, we've had multiple people in our community move up to us and join our community, but we're not like a cult here with Bear as our leader and we're all in this, don't own our own land. And like the back to the hippie movement, the back to land movement in the 60s and 70s, which failed because everyone was looking to have their problems solved by an external source. And so we believe in sovereignty. And so people come here, they get their land patents, they get their alloidal titles, they live next to us. We have work parties. We go to their land and help them build and beautiful structures. They respect their land. And that to us is a model that can really work because it's community-based, but it's also sovereignty-based. And I think the Kins domain thing, the one thing that was alarming to me, and Gabriel Miguel, who's a dear friend of ours, who is in charge of the Anastasia Foundation here in the United States and is working with Ron Gibson on developing land patents for the Kins domains here, is that there was this sort of weird thing with the Kins domain in Russia where they were looking for government handouts and they weren't doing the inner work per se. I don't want to say all of them, but from what I understand, many of them failed because of that. And so I think, once again, we have something to help, I think, Russians, and Russians have something to help us. We work together and we can develop models that are self-sustaining and based on sovereignty and first principles of natural law. And what a talk today, Bear. We could talk for hours.
Amazing. And Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to mention about the community is that slapping 70 families or even 20 families that hardly know each other on one land is a recipe for disaster. That's all I want to say. Well, as a natural thing, when people gravitate to you guys and you get to know them, and then like, okay, buddy, rent out a little hut here for 2 months. Let's work together. Let's get to know each other. I believe that's a way a community can form.
And having been exposed firsthand to some of the early communes in the 70s here in the United States, I would agree they never ended well. And rather than just making your decisions and getting up and going to work every day, you spent most of your time in meetings with other people, you know, not getting a darn thing done. So, yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And thank you so much again, Alosha, for being with us today. It would be a dream come true to attend one of your workshops firsthand over there. And in the meantime, I'm going to jump in with both feet online with some of your courses here, and I really look forward to it. Thank you.
It'll be a gift for both of you. You can both jump on my course just as a gift from me. So no need to. It was amazing for me to be part of this and share this with your community. So please, I will send you both links to the courses, and join us this Sunday, 10. Actually, the same time as we started this interview on Sunday.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
For the Zoom live session.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Alosha, I definitely see having you back on the show and developing this partnership more and more as we, you know, further expand our horizons at Alfa Vedic Farm and our model. It is about building a business that allows people to thrive and make, you know, and make a living, and so that they can self-generate their own prosperity. That's extremely important to us. And so it's not so much we get, you know, working on a dime, but if you can create the abundance through your model and then have the ability to not be stressing so much, you can, you know, free you up to do more beautiful things, right? So there's that mindset.
Why don't we put it out there? Maybe your community will respond. That if we can get like 20, 30 people and we ran a workshop, maybe even later on in the year, and build something not too big, but something very doable, like a double vault, like a wooden vault and a earth and cement vault in the little greenhouse. Why don't we plan a workshop like that on your land? And
I will absolutely volunteer our land for a group building project.
And I would love to have our, like a little branch of our academy, maybe on Bear's land with you guys to, you know, if I can find people that are well balanced, that are not people that are not balanced inside, they bully others, because they believe that by pushing another one down, they lift themselves up. If I can find people and I have that resonance with you guys, that we can cooperate on equal, then I'm game to start a little academy up on your land and slowly grow it. Once a year, come there and run a workshop and continue growing the little academy. That'll be wonderful.
I believe in our circles right here in the Alfa Vedic community, we do have sufficient numbers of people that are on that exact same page. So it wouldn't be difficult to pull that together.
Okay, well, let me know. I can design a little structure that's doable in a 2-week workshop from start to end. And if you guys prepare the foundation, we can come and rock everything else. Yeah, it's very doable.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Wow. That would be incredible.
Right.
And we, you of course, have a phenomenal place for you to stay. If you're to come out here right on the river, have your own home spot. I mean, it's a square home. It's got angles of sorrow, but it's still overlooking the South Fork of the
marvelous
Smith River.
Views, though.
Insane
Awesome.
Views, 20 miles from the closest power line. That's the other thing we didn't really touch on, is the energetics of the EMF of cities. And that's something we really need to be remembering. And we do a lot of work with orgone and Wilhelm Reich technology and understanding the resonance of that, and to balance that out, not only through architecture, but through things like earth pipes and orgone accumulators and things like
and
that.
biogeometry.
And biogeometry.
The right angles, there's really the right geometry can make magic. I didn't speak of that. There it is. There's two 135-degree angles. That's just to finish that off. They made a little wooden plate. It was exactly the same 135-degree angle, and they applied that to water, to seawater from Red Sea, the saltiest water on earth. And the water potatoes was that salty water that's been biogeometry infused. And you can read this up on biogeometry.ca, by the way, Ibrahim Karim's site. And the potatoes grew with, it's unheard of that anything grows in seawater, except, you know, those trees that are, what are they called, that thrive on seawater next to the estuaries. But anyway, potatoes don't definitely grow in seawater, and they grew really, really well. So we will touch on biogeometry in the next conversation, because I actually have the biogeometry pendulums, all my pendulums here, and I'll do a little presentation.
We had Doria Karim on the show in December.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I also forgot that.
I've been practicing biogeometry for quite a while, and we're big on it. And if I plant a tree, you know, I do all the testing to see where the ley lines are, to see where the tree wants to be, orient the tree, you know, exactly.
I'd love to.
All by
I would love to hear from you.
And all of our planting beds and our
pendant on
foods
right there,
forests have that's biogeometry. All of our food forests are designed with perimeters, with angles and numbers of rocks and things to create the beachy tree.
I'm trying to tell you about biogeometry. God, man. No. You guys are going to share.
It's a great discussion, and I'm really happy to hear that you're involved in it. So that just lends another dimension that we have to relate to.
The homes are fully designed on biogeometry. It's from the proportions of diameter of the rooms to the height is all 1.618. Yeah. No, I've got the same pendulums all here. To the 135-degree angles. The next step is research South Korean on-dole floor. Is these channels that you're going to see that they made, that they send fire under the floor, and they heated a 30-ton slab of clay. You only need to do a stoke of fire once or 2 weeks.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to leave you with this. The biosignatures from Ibrahim Karim. I want to use the biosignature shapes in different rooms that act as the air channels for warm and cold air to travel along. So that air channels are not just random. They'll actually be designed to specific biosignatures. And that's what I'll just leave you. This is where I'm going with this. So a home is a temple. That's where you just feel good. You come into a home, it's like walking into a forest. That's my aim for my life. And I want to build this as training centers that educate children on that kind of thinking. So when there is an oil spill, it's our kids that are going to go and know how to use the fungi, know how to use living machines from John Todd, know how to use the aeration and all those other methods to clean up the oil spills.
Well, we do our job right, there won't be oil spills because oil won't be used anymore.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody go to Alosha's site. I put it already. That is in the show notes. That is www.bioveda.co. That's bioveda.co. He's got a wonderful YouTube channel. That's / Alësha Lynov. That's ALOSHALYNOV. But those are all the links are there. I'll add the other links you dropped here. His Telegram, his link to for the community here for that free bending class on how to make the arches with your wood. So awesome, man. Appreciate you so much. You're out there doing God's work, and We need more of you. So if you're listening and you're inspired, guys, jump into it, man. Just start doing stuff. And thank you so much. And thanks everybody for listening. Give us a thumbs up, share with your friends and family, helps get the information out. Remember to get your feet out in the dirt, go ground yourself today. If you can, go plant something. Spring's here, go for a hike, jump into Mother Nature. She's our best teacher. Show her some love, and we'll see you next week. Love you all. Same bat time, same bat channel next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks so much, Alosha. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I know it's probably like 10 there now. Okay. Thanks,
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Bear. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm logging off.